Come with me. My daughter needs a mother like you, the rancher told the rejected giant bride. Witness this unbelievable, true inspired story right here on Whisper of the Past. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share where you're watching from. Let's get started. The late afternoon sun stretched long shadows over the Texas plains, painting the fields in shades of amber and gold. Evelyn stood alone by the edge of the churchyard, her satin gown catching the dying light. The delicate lace sleeves that had been hand-stitched by her aunt looked out of place on her tall, broad frame. The whispers still echoed in her mind, louder than the crickets beginning their nightly chorus. The man she had been promised to, the one who had vowed to meet her at the altar, had never arrived. Chairs filled with judgmental neighbors had sat empty as people left one by one, whispering cruel remarks about the giant bride who had been foolish enough to think she'd ever be wanted. Her heart ached, and though she had endured years of jokes and rejections, this cut deeper than any insult ever could. Today was supposed to be her chance at belonging. Instead, it had become her worst humiliation. Her father had passed years ago, her mother lived 2 states away, and no one had stepped forward to comfort her when she stumbled out of the chapel. Face pale, mascara streaking down her cheeks. She had walked barefoot now after pulling off her pinching shoes across the gravel path toward the fence line. The wide horizon stretched endlessly, but instead of freedom, it felt like a reminder of her emptiness. Evelyn had always been different. At 6'5", she towered over every man in town. She had tried to soften her presence, bending her knees in photographs, wearing flats to dances, slouching her shoulders, but nothing ever worked. To most, she wasn't Evelyn, she was that giant girl. A faint crunch of boots on gravel broke into her despair. She turned, ready to brush away her tears before another gossip seeker could enjoy her misery. But the man walking toward her wasn't smirking. He carried a calm strength, his shirt dusty from a day's labor, and beside him clutched a little girl in a faded yellow dress with braids coming loose. His eyes met hers, steady and full of something she hadn't seen in a long time, sincerity. He stopped a few feet away, as if he knew she might run, and said the words that would change the course of her life. "Come with me. My daughter needs a mother like you." At first, Evelyn thought she had misheard. Her lips parted, but no words came. She glanced at the girl, who peeked from behind her father's leg with wide, curious eyes, and then back at him. No one had ever spoken to her like that. People had told her she was too big, too intimidating, too odd, but never had anyone looked at her and spoken as though she were needed. Her throat tightened, and she finally managed to whisper, "Why me?" The rancher's jaw flexed, not with hesitation but conviction. "Because my little girl deserves kindness, and I see it in you, even now, standing here with your heart breaking." His words were simple, but they struck deeper than anything she had ever heard. The little girl, maybe 7 years old, tugged lightly at Evelyn's dress. "Will you read me bedtime stories?" she asked in a small, hopeful voice. Evelyn felt tears burn her eyes all over again, but this time not from shame. Something inside her shifted. The laughter from the church, the cruel names, the rejection, all of it felt distant compared to the innocence in that child's voice. Still, fear held her back. She didn't even know his name. What if this was pity? What if tomorrow he too turned his back on her? The rancher seemed to sense her hesitation. He removed his hat, running a calloused hand through his hair, and said softly, "I'm Daniel. This is Clara, my daughter. I lost my wife 3 years ago. She was kind like you. Clara has missed a mother's love every day since." His voice cracked just slightly, but he stood tall, his hand resting on his daughter's shoulder. "I'm not asking you to marry me tonight. I'm asking you not to give up on what you deserve. Come to the ranch. Spend time with us. See if it feels right." The offer was too much for her wounded heart to process, yet something told her this was not mockery. This was a chance. Her hands trembled as she nodded, unsure of her voice. Daniel smiled just faintly, relief softening his rugged features. "Good," he said simply. He extended a hand, but not to pull her, just to let her decide. After a moment, Evelyn took it. His hand was rough, worn from years of work, but it was steady. grounding her as no one had ever done before. The ride to the ranch was quiet, except for Clara's gentle humming in the back seat of the old pickup truck. Evelyn kept her gaze on the endless fields rushing by, her thoughts a whirlwind. The truck smelled faintly of leather and hay, and each bump on the dirt road reminded her she was leaving behind the scene of her greatest humiliation. She wasn't sure what she was walking into, but she knew one thing: she wasn't walking into it alone. When they arrived, the ranch stretched before her like something out of a painting. Wooden fences framed wide pastures where horses grazed under the fading light. The farmhouse stood proud, though weathered, with ivy climbing the porch posts and a rocking chair swaying gently in the breeze. Clara hopped out and ran to greet a golden retriever that bounded toward her. Daniel looked at Evelyn, studying her with careful eyes, as though gauging if she regretted stepping into his world. "You don't have to decide anything tonight," he told her gently. "Just eat with us. Rest a while." Inside, the farmhouse was warm and inviting, smelling faintly of cornbread and cedar wood. Clara tugged Evelyn's hand eagerly, showing her drawings taped to the fridge, her bookshelf stacked with half-read fairy tales, her small room with a quilt neatly folded on the bed. Evelyn listened, smiled, and felt her heart stir with emotions she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. At dinner, Daniel spoke little, but every time Evelyn glanced at him, his eyes told her more than words ever could. He wasn't seeing a giant bride. He was seeing a woman, bruised but kind, rejected but not broken. When Clara insisted Evelyn read her a bedtime story, Daniel didn't interrupt. He only stood quietly at the door, arms folded, as Evelyn's deep but gentle voice carried the story of a brave princess through the small room. Clara's eyelids fluttered shut, and Daniel's eyes softened with gratitude. Later, as the night deepened and stars filled the sky, Evelyn stepped out onto the porch. The cool wind brushed her cheeks, and she exhaled heavily. Daniel joined her, leaning on the railing. Neither spoke for a while, the silence comfortable rather than heavy. Finally, Evelyn whispered, "I don't know if I can be what you need me to be." Daniel turned to her, his voice low but firm. "You don't have to be perfect. Just be here. That's all Clara needs. That's all I need." The tears she had been holding back spilled silently, but this time they felt cleansing, not shattering. For the first time in her life, Evelyn wasn't standing alone in her pain. She was standing on a porch in Texas, under the stars, with a man and his little girl who looked at her not as a joke, not as a giant, but as someone worth loving. And though she didn't know what the future would bring, she felt deep in her bones that her story wasn't ending in rejection. It was just beginning. The morning sun broke over the horizon, spilling golden light across the ranch. Evelyn woke to the unfamiliar sound of roosters crowing and horses neighing in the distance. For a moment, she thought she was still dreaming, until she felt the quilt over her and remembered the night before, the dinner, Clara's smile, Daniel's quiet strength. She had fallen asleep in the guest room, exhaustion pulling her under after reading Clara her story. Now as she sat up, she felt both nerves and a strange sense of peace. Downstairs, she heard the clatter of pans. The scent of sizzling bacon drifted through the air. When she stepped into the kitchen, barefoot and unsure if she belonged, she found Clara already at the table, hair messy from sleep, sipping milk. Daniel stood by the stove, flipping bacon with a practiced hand. He glanced up, his expression unreadable at first, then softened into something she hadn't seen directed at her in years. "Welcome." "Morning," he said simply. "Hope you slept all right." Evelyn nodded, brushing back her long hair. "Better than I expected." She hesitated, then added, "Thank you for letting me stay." Daniel shrugged lightly, though his eyes lingered on her. "Wasn't charity. Clara already thinks the world of you." Clara beamed, crumbs of toast on her lips, and Evelyn felt her chest tighten with a warmth she didn't want to admit. After breakfast, Evelyn offered to help with chores. Daniel handed her a pair of worn gloves, eyebrows raised. "Think you're up for ranch work?" he teased. She met his gaze squarely. Try me! That day Evelyn worked harder than she ever had. She fed the horses, carried hay bales, even mended part of the fence alongside Daniel. The townspeople had always called her size awkward, unfeminine, but here on the ranch her strength was useful. Daniel watched quietly as she lifted more than most men could, never mocking, only nodding in approval. Clara followed them everywhere, skipping along, laughing in a way Evelyn suspected she hadn't done in a long while. By evening, Evelyn's muscles ached, her palms blistered, but her spirit felt lighter. For the first time, she wasn't too big, she was just right. Still, doubt lingered. That night on the porch as the cicadas sang, Evelyn asked Daniel the question, gnawing at her. Why me? You barely know me. Daniel leaned against the railing, hat pulled low. Because sometimes you just know. You showed up broken, but you still comforted Clara like she was yours. That says more than years of knowing someone. His words left her speechless. Weeks turned into months. Evelyn stayed, though she told herself it was temporary. She learned the rhythm of ranch life, the early mornings, the long days, the satisfaction of seeing a job done. She braided Clara's hair before school, taught her how to bake cornbread, and read to her every night. Clara clung to Evelyn's presence, as if she had been waiting her whole life for it. Daniel remained steady, never pushing, but every glance, every shared silence spoke volumes. Yet the town did not stay silent. Whispers reached her ears when she ventured into town for supplies. Women stared, men snickered. The giant bride found herself a widower, they muttered. Some pitied Daniel, others mocked Evelyn. She tried to ignore it, but the words stung. One afternoon at the general store, a woman sneered, "Guess ranchers will take anything when they're desperate." Evelyn's face burned, but before she could respond, a firm hand rested on her shoulder. Daniel stood beside her, eyes cold. "Careful," he warned the woman. His voice was low, but the weight in it silenced the entire store. For the first time, Evelyn realized she wasn't fighting alone anymore. Despite the gossip, life on the ranch grew into a rhythm that felt like home. Clara adored Evelyn. Daniel respected her, and slowly, Evelyn allowed herself to believe she might belong. She still caught herself doubting, wondering if one day Daniel would see her the way the town did. But every evening when he sat across from her at dinner, listening intently as Clara told stories, or when he handed her tools without hesitation during chores, she felt something unspoken building between them. One chilly autumn night, after tucking Clara in, Evelyn stepped onto the porch. The stars stretched endlessly above. Daniel joined her, silent as always at first. After a long pause, he said, "You've changed this place." She looked at him, startled. "Me?" He nodded. Clara laughs again. "The house feels alive. I laugh again." His eyes met hers, steady and unwavering. "Don't ever doubt why you're here." Her heart pounded. She wanted to believe him, but fear still clawed at her. She whispered, "What if I can't give you what you need?" Daniel's jaw tightened, and then he stepped closer. "You already have." Winter came, harsh and unforgiving. The ranch demanded more work than ever, but Evelyn faced it with determination. When Clara fell sick with a fever, Evelyn stayed by her bedside night after night, wiping her forehead, singing softly until the girl slept. Daniel watched from the doorway, his gratitude unspoken but blazing in his eyes. On the worst night, when Clara's fever spiked, Evelyn clutched Daniel's hand and whispered, "She'll be okay." The next morning, when Clara's fever finally broke, Evelyn wept with relief, and Daniel pulled her into an embrace that spoke of more than comfort. It spoke of need, of connection, of love neither had dared to name. By spring, their bond was undeniable. The gossip in town grew louder. Some called Evelyn opportunistic, others pitied Daniel. But one Sunday, when they walked into church together, Daniel with Clara on one side, Evelyn on the other, the whispers faltered. Daniel's hand brushed Evelyn's, not by accident but with intention. Clara grinned up at both of them, her small hands clutching theirs. In that moment, Evelyn realized she no longer needed the town's approval. She had a family. Still, Daniel had yet to speak the words she longed to hear. He was a man of action, not speech. But one evening after another long day, he finally did. They sat on the porch, the sun setting in hues of red and gold. Daniel cleared his throat, looking uncharacteristically nervous. "Evelyn," he began, "I asked you to come here for Clara, but somewhere along the way, I realized I needed you too." Her breath caught. He continued, voice rough but honest. "You're more than the woman who showed up broken. You're strong, gentle, everything I didn't know I was waiting for. Clara already calls you Mama when she thinks I can't hear." His eyes softened. "So I'm asking now, not out of desperation, not out of pity, but out of love. Stay. Be my wife. Be her mother." Tears blurred Evelyn's vision. For years she had been mocked, rejected, told she was too much. Now here was a man asking her to be exactly who she was. She didn't hesitate. "Yes," she whispered, her voice breaking. The wedding was small, held at the ranch under the wide Texas sky. Neighbors came, some out of curiosity, others in support. As Evelyn walked down the makeshift aisle, Clara ran to her, clutching her hand. Daniel stood waiting, eyes never leaving hers. When the vows were spoken, there were no jeers, no whispers, only the sound of wind in the fields and a little girl's laughter. Evelyn had once been the rejected giant bride, humiliated and heartbroken. But now, on that ranch, she was a wife, a mother and the heart of a family. The town could gossip all it wanted. She had found her place, her people, her love. And as the sun dipped low, painting the ranch in light, Evelyn knew the truth. Sometimes rejection isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of the one you were meant to live.